Good morning, students. We have been looking at the gender problems in India, and as the problems like, say, discrimination, problems like they not being given women not being given equal treatment. But that's what the chapter is talking about. But I also counted at the same time that yes, situation is not as bad as it is being portrayed in this chapter, because I very strongly feel that this chapter and the contents of this chapter were formulated, and people came up with it in the early 80s probably, or early 90s, because the India that exists today is definitely not what is being portrayed in this chapter, because women have actually come they've far than what it this chapter would like you to believe. They are today occupying spaces, all the spaces, public spaces, private spaces, social spaces, everywhere. And there is nothing called discrimination as such. That if you happen, what is discrimination, you have to first understand, which would be that you are being discriminated. That is gender discrimination. That is discrimination based on gender is about, if you are a woman or a man, you would be discriminated against, whichever side I want to choose. But then it's not happening anymore. Women now are district collectors, they are SPs, they are becoming army officers. Guys, sky is the limit. They are CEOs of banks everywhere. You just have to deserve to be there. And if you have that in you, if you have those skills, if you have those talents, there's nothing that can actually stop you from being there. So it's just about making your own mark, having that talent, and if you have it, there's nothing that stops you. Okay. But yes, this problem which I'm just about to start, this is actually a problem in India, which we definitely cannot deny. That is the last paragraph here, that is right above the map. In many parts of India, parents prefer to have sons and find ways to have the girl child aborted before she is born. Such sex selective abortion led to a decline in child sex ratio, number of girl child per thousand boys in the country, to a mere 919. In fact, in the early 90s, it had gone even to about 891, 892, around that figure. It had become that bad. And as the map shows, this ratio has fallen below 850 or even 800 in certain places. Yes. So there are reports of various kinds of harassment, exploitation, and violence against women. Urban areas have become particularly unsafe for women. They are not safe even within their own home from beating, harassment, and other forms of domestic violence. Guys, domestic violence, of course, happens to be a problem which we still, as a society, we have not been able to get rid of or eradicate. But when you talk about violence against women, uh, India is, or any, for that matter, any society, there is violence in any society, right? Do you think there is no violence against men? Men get beaten, robbed, killed all the time, right? So this is a society. You cannot a bit of violence, no society can be completely violence free, right? It cannot be violence free if you have crores and crores of people living together. Okay. The idea is to ensure that it doesn't go beyond a point. That the idea is to ensure that that the harmony within the society is always maintained. So women's political representation, this is very important. All this is well known, yet issues related to women's well-being or otherwise are not given adequate attention. This has led many feminists and women movement to the conclusion that unless women control power, their problems would not get adequate attention. One way to ensure this is to have more women as elected representatives. In India, the proportion of women in legislature has been very low. For example, the percentage of elected women in Lok Sabha has touched 14.36% of of its total strength for the first time in 1290. Their share in the state assemblies is less than 5%. In this respect, India is among the bottom group of nations in the world. See the graph below. India is behind the average of several developing countries in Africa and Latin America in the government cabinets. In the government, the cabinets are largely all male, even when a woman becomes the chief minister or the prime minister. One way to solve this problem is to make it legally binding to have a fair proportion of women in the elected bodies. This is what the Panchayati Raj has done in India. One third of seats in local government bodies in panchayats and municipalities are now reserved for women. Now, there are more than 10 lakh elected women representatives in rural and urban local bodies. Women's organizations and activists have been demanding a similar reservation of at least one third of seat in Lok Sabha and state assemblies for a bill with this proposal has been pending before the parliament for more than a decade. But there is no consensus over this, allowing all the political among all the political parties. The bill has not yet been passed. So essentially, what it means here, students, is that in panchayati elections, women have been able to ensure that one third of the seats that the seats for the sarpanch and the mukhias, all of those seats have are reserved. At least one third of them are now reserved for women. They have been successful in ensuring that, one third seat being reserved for women essentially means that men cannot stand for election in those seats. They are specifically reserved for women, and any political party or an independent candidate who wants to contest in those constituencies or areas or villages, they would have to be women. Men would not be allowed simply. Now, this is something that is one third of the seats being particularly and specially allocated for women. Women legislatures and the women civil rights activists have been trying to get it done in the Indian Parliament, that is Lok Sabha, as well as the state legislature. Like, for example, for the state of Uttarakhand, it would be Vidhan Sabha, which is there in Dehradun, and like, for example, all the different Vidhan Sabhas, whether it is Uttar Pradesh or Bihar or Haryana. And so people have been trying to ensure that all these Vidhan Sabhas also have a one third reservation meant only for the female candidates. But this is being this is being tried for a very long time, and people have not been successful with neither in Lok Sabha nor in Vidhan Sabha. Guys, students, you have to now you're in class 10. So what I'm about to tell you, just pay attention and just use a bit of your intelligence as well. Now, you have studied about what democracy is in class 9. Okay, how it works, how what the basic components and the basic constituents of democracy. And you know now that democracy is about numbers. Numbers are of prime importance in democracy. Now, you would also know that democracy cannot operate without political parties, right? Now, the point is, if you want to have elections, that is the basic criteria within a democracy, you have to win elections. Now, if you have to fight elections, you fight elections to win. And when you win elections, why do you want to win elections? You want to win elections so that you can form the government, right? Now, so I have to ensure that my candidates win the elections, and only then I would be able to form the government, right? So now, if you reserve that's what the problem has been, and that is why it has not been passed at all at least in Lok Sabha and to the level of Vidhan Sabha. The reason for that is that the political parties basically would like the candidates who can win, right? The candidates who can ensure that yes, people win those seats. Now, as you know, that your constitution also talks about, the Constitution of India talks about equal opportunities for everyone. Now, if the problem is, if you say that Dehradun would from now on would be only reserved for women, now men cannot fight for the elections, whether the Lok Sabha constituency or for that matter Vidhan Sabha in Dehradun or Missouri, now only the women and only the women can fight, then guys, the basic problem is that then it is not about offering equal opportunities at all. Then you are not giving equal opportunities to everyone. Now imagine a situation where, in different areas of Dehradun, maybe there are some men who probably have been working for the welfare of the citizens of Dehradun for the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and now they would like to probably stand for the elections. Now if the government tells them, no, hey, listen, you can't fight for the elections even if you have worked for the people and the citizens of Dehradun for the last 5, 10, 15 years, whatever number of years, and you might have done everything within your power and capacity and stamina, but you still would not be allowed to represent them because for one reason, that you are a man. Only women can do that. Whether they have sweated it out over the last whatever number of years, if they have been sitting idle, they have been sitting home, it really doesn't matter. But only they would be eligible, and that too on the basis of what? Just because of the on the basis of gender, right, guys? Then it is not being equal opportunities for everyone at all. Then again, now you have completely turned the tables. Now earlier you were talking about discrimination against women on the basis of gender. Now after 5 years you will have to print a chapter, a separate chapter, which would be talking about discrimination on the basis of gender against men. None of us want that, because both are extreme positions, right? Both are extreme positions, and that is why a lot of people within India and in other societies as well. Let me take an Indian example for Indian case, for example. Do you think people like Sushma Swaraj and Jayalalitha and Mamta Banerjee and Mayawati, or anyone for that matter, there are many women who have been elected into Lok Sabhas and different Vidhan Sabhas. Now, not that is only on the basis of the mark that they have been able to make on the people who elect them, right? The people who choose them. It is not on the basis of, they have not played the gender card there. They have just said, this is the good work that I have done and I would need your support, and people have been okay with that. It is, they have continuously defeated the male candidates, right? And people have still voted for these women who are very popular, famous. Why? Because people think that they would be doing the job better compared to the other men. So that is how it should be, and that is only then you have a situation of equal opportunities, right? That is the equal opportunities that your constitution talks about, that the laws talk about. That yes, no one would be discriminated against on the basis of whether caste or religion or color or gender. Then all that thing goes out of the window, right? If you start doing it at the level of Lok Sabha, and if you start doing it at the level of Vidhan Sabha, then the democratic structure, the framework whereby you talk about giving equal opportunity to everyone, basically you talk about, that's what the beauty of democracy is. If you deserve it, you take it. If you think you can pull it off, do it, right? That's, even your prime minister has set an example. From a chaiwala, he becomes a prime minister. Why? That is what the strength of democracy is. That's what democracy can do. That's what it is capable of achieving, right? That if you have it in you, there's nothing can stop you. The system is not designed to stop you. The system is designed to encourage you, motivate you, propel you to the heights, right? But if you actually start doing a whole discriminatory kind of a system, then the system starts building a roadblock, and it is not a facilitator anymore. We shall continue. Thanks.